I was asked to help co-create See the Good, and I started talking to all my fellow co-creators at the Conscious Good Creators Network. One of the themes that emerged was how amazing it is to see all these wonderful filmmakers, storytellers, and artists creating inspirational, profound, beautiful little pieces that were going viral all over the internet. And for me, there's one film, The Great Realization, done by Foolery out of the UK, that I think will become synonymous with this time in our lives.
Tell me the one about the virus again, then I'll go to bed.
But my boy, you're growing weary, sleepy thoughts about your head.
Please, that one's my favourite. I promise just once more.
Okay, snuggle down, my boy, though I know you know full well. The story starts before then, in a world I once would dwell.
How did you continuing to express your creativity, how important was that to you, especially in lockdown?
Well, I have the added blessing, as you could say, sometimes it doesn't feel like a blessing, of being locked down with two 7-year-olds. And so I'm obviously joking, but yeah, they're wonderful. They're full of energy, and the schools in the UK closed. So my dad is working in the hospitals, and so that leaves at home me and my stepmom, who's their mum, my dad's second wife. And so, you know, we've got these guys all day, but she's working from home, and so it's only really fair that we split up the day, and that for a large portion of the day I'm responsible for, you know, homeschooling them and looking after them, and which is, you know, which is completely fine with me. But the problem is the school sends us work for us to work through, but I don't find it takes the whole day. I find it after a couple of hours we've worked through the work that the school wants us to do, and then there's lots more hours of the day to fill. And so I really feel like the best way to, you know, keep your mind active, which I think is so important, is to make little projects and to get them involved, you know, because I've got camera equipment, I've got a basic knowledge of filmmaking, and you know, it's fun. I like teaching them, and yeah, their attention spans are very limited. They won't sit with me when I'm doing these poems take after take after take, but they will watch me set up, and they'll ask me questions and all of these things. So yeah, in answer to your question, I think creativity, I think being creative is, you know, a way to keep the mind healthy, you know, and to keep the mind active, which I think is so important, because, you know, when we're told we can't leave our houses except to go to the supermarket or for, you know, one round of exercise in the day, you think, well, you know, what you know, what are we going to do all day? I don't like the thought of just telling them, you know, just watch TV all day. You know, it's great to watch TV. I watch TV myself, but, you know, for 10 hours, it's not right. So we got to do stuff.
Yeah, I believe me. I know about. I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you know about lockdown with kids.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's a little like, woo.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the idea for The Great Realization?
That's a question I'm used to responding to now. Truly, the same way I come up with all of the poems I've ever made, which is just I try to respond to a feeling that I'm experiencing, or that I feel I'm surrounded by. That's all I'm ever trying to do. Ultimately, it's just articulate an idea or a feeling. And in that instance, I had a strong feeling that a lot of the conversations I was having over the dinner table, or when I was on the phone to my mum, or when I was on the phone to my girlfriend or friends, you know, I felt like the conversations were shifting in their tone. This was about just under 2 months ago. Coronavirus was very new, very scary. All the news seemed to be doing, in our country at least, was reporting how many people had died that day. you know, there were feelings of mistrust around, there were feelings of anxiety, of fear, of loneliness, of depression. And I just thought, okay, you know, obviously, I understand why, you know, this is something to be taken seriously. I'm not suggesting that it's not important that we receive those messages, but I also thought that if people don't have anything to be hopeful for, and if people don't have anything to work towards or look forward to, I think that can be incredibly dangerous for people's mental health. You know, definitely for mine. You know, I need something, and so I set myself the challenge of finding a hopeful message. And I didn't want to take that lightly, because when you're in a situation where people are losing their jobs, going out of business, suffering financial hardship, losing loved ones, you know, suffering personal hardship, you don't want to make cheap light of that situation. But, you know, in a very thought out, mature way, I thought if there is a hopeful message to be found, then that's worth finding and articulating and sharing. And the best I could come up with after thinking about this for about 3 weeks was, maybe this moment is so disruptive that it could be used as a springboard to improve things. And the phrase that actually prompted me in a very literal way to write that particular poem was, I heard a lot of people saying, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. And I heard a lot of people saying that. And for some reason, it just struck me. And sometimes people are saying something, you just think there's something slightly off about it. There's something not quite right about it. And I think what I felt that was I thought that we were selling ourselves short. You know, everyone was saying, I can't wait for it to go back to normal. And I started thinking, well, you know, is that where we want to go back to, or could we go back to something even better? Wouldn't that be more interesting? You know, because, you know, there were major structural problems before, and this could be a chance to reevaluate some of those things. You know, for a long time, people have been telling us we've been consuming too much of the world's resources. Too much of our time has been consumed by work and not in our relationships with our loved ones. You know, our attitudes towards waste, towards consumerism, capitalism, consumption. I was thinking, you know, many people, wealth distribution. You know, I was thinking, you know, there are many areas that, you know, I remember thinking before coronavirus came along, could do with improving, and maybe this is a chance. You know, so they were a lot of the things that were buzzing around in my head when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about next, because that's all these poems are. They're just discussions, really. They're just open-ended questions to whoever's listening. So I thought about. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was rambling.
So your poem, I mean, it's got at this point over 6 million views, and it really did. It caused a shift.
Well, that's on YouTube. It's like 60. Yeah,
everywhere. It's all over the place, and I got it from people that I would never have expected to share that poem, because they all know that I'm kind of woo-woo Betsy, but people were watching that poem, that you reached into people who probably wouldn't really have ever thought those kinds of, thought of it that way. And that was impressive. Like, that's what I loved about it, was that you delivered a message in such a simple way that really made people think. And what do you think about that kind of impact that media or that creativity can make? I mean, that you changed minds with that piece.
I feel like, I mean, maybe I changed some minds. I feel that maybe I was simply able to put into words something that a lot of people were feeling, and you know, it's the same. It's kind of the same. It's the same situation as when a song comes out, and the emotion of the song is, you know, maybe it's a song about a breakup, or maybe it's a song about falling in love, or a song about you know, hope for the future, or anything. But maybe the emotion in that song mirrors a way that you were feeling, and you couldn't articulate it until that song came along, and then you find this song and you love this song because it's you're connecting with it in an emotional way. And I feel like, I don't, from my perspective, obviously I'm just hypothesizing, I don't know, but from my perspective, I don't think I changed people's minds. I think it's that situation where you're in, you know, you're at a party or at a dinner party or whatever, and someone just says something and you think, yes, that's what I was trying to say. I just think that happened. I just you know, I happened to articulate something that I was feeling, and that a lot of other people were feeling, because you know, that's all I think artists are trying to do, really, is just articulate a feeling, whether that's with a dance or a painting or a song or a piece of music or a poem or a novel or anything. You know, I think we're just storytelling, and in that story is packed with feeling, and people are everyone feels, you know, and so yeah, I you know, I feel, obviously I feel incredibly pleased to have created something that can be useful. You know, I think that's a really rewarding feeling, and I hope to do so again. You know, but I know how rare it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
really
here
rare.
in the U.S., I don't know if you know this, but here in the U.S., anyone has to say is, remember that video of the guy and he's reading the poem to the kids, and everyone knows what they're talking about. So in some way, you are a representative of the poem or the feeling that a lot of Americans, for sure, and probably people around the world, feel about this, what happened. And you know, one of our questions is, what kind of world do you want to see after not just the lockdown and the virus, but now, especially here in the US, but I mean, it's happening all over the world. You know, we've got riots in the street, and we've got protesters. So the question, I mean, in a way, you kind of answered it with the Great Realization, but what kind of world are you hoping emerges from this whole awakening that we're going, or Great Realization, as you call it?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, there are so many deeply intelligent people in our society who are going to you know, are going to provide their own answers to a question that I was trying to pose. So the question that I was effectively trying to pose with this poem is could we be better? You know, is there anything we could do better? Is there anything we were doing before that we'd like to leave behind and not take forward with us? I think it would be a mistake for me to take this moment of attention to you know, to pretend that I have answers that I simply don't have. You know, all of the questions that I'm asking in the poem about, you know, reevaluating, you know, certain structures and certain habits, you know, I'm guilty of as well. You know, I would hate to try and assume the position of a preacher, because I don't feel like one. I feel like someone who's very much part of the crowd, who is not stood on a stage at the front telling the crowd how to behave. I feel like someone who's within the crowd going, guys, what do we think about this? You know, and not saying we should do this, because, you know, I think that there are so many complex issues, and I think that there are people with the expertise and the wisdom and the intelligence to guide us in our responses to those issues. And I feel like that often the job of an artist is to try and ask the important questions, but not necessarily presume to know all the answers. So, to avoid rambling, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out as much as you. I don't know how to get the balances right that I may have been getting wrong. I don't know how I can be more useful. But by engaging with the question, you're taking the first step towards figuring out an answer. So, I hope that wasn't deflective, but that's how I feel.
Good. I liked it. I mean, it's true. I think that's part of the Conscious Good mission too, is we just want to, part of what our philosophy is, that if we just, because this leads into what my final question is really, if we start looking for the good, if we see the good, if we create opportunity for good to be experienced, more people just sort of organically start feeling good. So I think that's part of why we love film and we love media, because it's such an important medium to inspire people. So where you're in the UK, right?
Yeah, I'm in London.
Tell me, what good are you seeing in your world and in the world at large that's inspired you right now during this time?
Well, my world has shrunk considerably, so I see very literally on a day-to-day basis my family, and that's it. Everyone else I see, and all other actions and behaviors I see through this screen that I'm looking at you from right now. In my personal life, I see lots of reasons to be hopeful. I speak to my little brother and sister every day when I'm putting them to bed, and I ask them about what they're interested in. In fact, when I was writing the poem, I wanted their input, because when I was writing the before time section, I wanted to know, what the problems in the world were that were important to a couple of 7-year-olds. So I asked them, and my little sister was very concerned in that moment about fish eating plastic and dying. My little brother was very concerned about some people having lots and lots of money and some people having none at all. And so, I just thought, okay, well, that's what you're concerned about. I'm going to put it into my poem. And when we live and when we exist with an open mind, I do think we can start to notice, there's a phrase in the poem that I put in, which was just simple acts of kindness. And that's something that I believe in quite passionately, because I think that through simple acts of kindness, actually, they have incredible power. There's a ripple effect with something that you can do for somebody else that can travel far further than you will ever be aware. And obviously, I'm really, really interested in the leaders that are trying as hard as they can to tell the truth at the moment. And I would encourage any leaders of the world who aren't focusing enough on that to do their best. And you see people doing really great things online. I was really happy to see John Krasinski doing that Some Good News YouTube channel. I thought that was so lovely. So I think there are lots of things to be hopeful for, but the thing that interests me and excites me the most is when people voluntarily commit to gestures of goodwill to each other that they don't believe will ever be noticed by anyone, but actually I think will have a tremendous impact. That makes me hopeful.
I love that. Yeah, I love this. The simple. I see that all the time. How one person's little act of kindness that but somebody picks something up off the ground or, does some little thing, and you can feel the ripple effect.
It's a ripple effect. And then that person that has experienced it will then take that with them forward to whoever they interact with that day. And,
there you go. That's how we create
limitless.
good in the world.
That's why I was so pleased to talk to you.
Oh,
because I think you guys are doing, wonderful things. Thank
you. Well, the platform is going to launch July 1st. There's lots of really cool movies, and we're getting more. It's important, I think, because I think it's going to be a little easier now. I mean, it's funny because I made What the Bleep, and it like blew up, right? Like it was, I think, 400 screens in the U.S. and all over the world, and like you, it was just like it just happened, right? Everyone thinks that we're geniuses because we did. It was just like, man, it was just the right moment for it to explode, and but at the time there weren't a lot of movies like that, and then The Secret came, and now there's a lot of content, but it still doesn't. Maybe it will now, but for a long time it still kind of was shoved off into this genre and put over there. And part of, our mission with Conscious Good is to highlight it and say, it doesn't need to be this weird fringe thing. It should be something special because there's some really great stories, not just documentaries, but narratives and great transformational pieces that we hope will inspire people to not look back and go, like, I want to get back to normal. Wait a minute, there's a whole world over here that I could step into that has something for me in it that's inspiring and hopeful. So that's kind of what we're about. Well, good luck to you, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was just reading, like, you now with CAA, and you're just going to are you doing a kid's book? And look at you. Well, what was the film about, the feature?
The one that I made or the one that I plan to make? The
one that you made. You were making a feature, right? Look,
we finished it, and we'd just been selected for the Moscow International Film Festival, and we were going there with it, and it was going to be our international premiere and then lockdown. So we don't know what to do with it currently. We're still trying to figure that out, but it's called Hilda, and it's the story of a young 17-year-old girl growing up in London who dreams of being a dancer, but her incredibly unstable parents leave, and she's left alone with her little brother and sister, and she drops out of school and attempts to keep her family together. And it's quite a gritty British story of creativity and resilience, I would say. So we put a lot of love and time and energy into that film, and I worked on it as a producer, and I very much very, very hopeful that we find an audience and a home for it, because I think it's a worthy story. Actually, Tim Roth is an executive producer on it, who I think is an actor that you guys will know, in this big actor in the States and the UK. So that was kind of the last 3 years of my life was consumed by telling this story, and then this has happened, and now I'm interested in obviously finding a home for that, but now I've discovered that you can tell a story as well in 4 minutes, which is quite interesting. So I'm exploring that.
I think people, that's why we decided to do these in 15-minute chunks, Do you think that's I love film, I love cinema. I'm not a big fan of a lot of them turn into 3-hour movies a lot, but I do love sitting in for an hour and a half, 2 hours and diving into a story. But I do appreciate the 5-minute powerful pieces, just like yours. I mean, it was, 3.5 minutes or something?
4, bang on 4.
Yeah, it was really short and just but really profound. So there's a lot you can do in 4 minutes. So it was amazing. Well, Tom, basically, I really needed focused on the 2 questions, but I just wanted to kind of hear your story. I think you're amazing. Good luck with everything that you're doing, and thank you so much for your contribution. That little simple act of kindness of putting that piece together made a ginormous ripple on the planet.
Well, you can never know. You can never. I had no idea. You know, you can never know when you're doing something what it might lead to. But my dad said to me once, and I'll never forget it because it's one of the most useful things he's ever said to me, which is probably a good place to leave you with. He told me, if you're inactive, nothing will happen. If you're active, maybe something will happen. And you can't guarantee anything, but all we can play for is that maybe. So it's more appealing than nothing.
Well, I also think just getting to sit with you for a minute, that what you created from a genuine place in the heart, and you just created authentically. And I suspect that while you would have loved to have success with it, you created from a genuine question and a genuine curiosity, and that's the birthplace of powerful creativity to me.
Thank you.